In the world of Chromebooks and versus videos, there are a few that are more requested than this one we're going to do today. We're going to pit the new Pixel Slate against the almost year-old HP Chromebook X2 because they share a ton of things across the board, a ton of traits, and not even close to the same price tag. So what we want to look at, especially for you guys that are thinking about buying either one of these or that want a detachable tablet type device, which one is the best bang for your buck? But before we get into all these comparisons, this video is brought to you by NordVPN. They're the VPN of choice for millions and millions of users, and there's a good reason. They're great at what they do. They can secure your browsing whether you're on a Chromebook or your phone or a MacBook or a Windows device. It doesn't really matter. They're great at keeping your stuff secure and private while you're online at home or on the go. If you'd like to learn more, go to chromeunbox.com/NordVPN to learn more today. A quick recap on how we're handling these versus videos. We're breaking things down into 5 categories, similar to the way that we would review a device in general. So build quality would be 1, followed by screen, and then keyboard and trackpad, so kind of your input methods. Then internals, which we're putting ports and speakers and all that kind of stuff into the internals, so battery life, all of those things go to that. And then just basic usability and user experience, so the way it feels to use the device, the overall experience of actually using it on a day-to-day basis. So let's start out with build quality. So when we look at, we'll go with the X2 first on this one. When we look at the X2's build quality, it's great. I mean, the anodized lid has this really cool look, kind of like the HP X360. It's got the aluminum edges around the tablet portion and all glass on the front. And I like the edges being less rounded and a little more square. It gives a little more of a tactile feel. It's easier to hold on to. And it weighs the same as the Pixel Slate, and yet somehow, not really sure how this works, it actually feels lighter in the hand. And I think mainly it's just because the grip on it, because of the way the back is, and the sides being a little more squared off, it just has a better grip and a better feel to it when I'm holding it like a tablet. Moving over to the Slate, a lot of the same things can be said. It's built really well. It's all aluminum on the back. It's this nice soft touch coating kind of on the back of the aluminum. It does pick up fingerprints like crazy, but it feels really great. It looks great on a table. The rounded edges look super modern, and just everything just looks really well finished and thought out. And overall, I mean, you have to look at it and just realize they put a lot of engineering in this thing. It's balanced perfectly. The bezels are symmetrical. All that stuff is great. But because those bezels are a little bit smaller and because the edges are so rounded and flowy, sometimes I feel a little awkward holding the device in one hand. And so I kind of like that part about the HP X2 a little bit better. But overall, there's no way I can look at these two devices side by side and say that the HP is built better than the Pixel Slate. There's a lot of engineering that went into the Slate, and you can just tell. It just feels better overall. It feels better engineered, and it's just a higher quality, better put together device overall. So when we talk about build quality, the win has to go to the Pixel Slate. Now, in that first category, neither one's really a slouch. They're put together really well. And as we move to the screen, that's kind of the same thing here as well, because the HP X2 is outfitted with what amounts to the Pixelbook's display, and we know it's great. It's got great colors, great viewing angles, great contrast ratios, all those things that just make a good screen. It has. And so there's no real knocks here. That bezels are a little bit bigger on the HP than they are on the Slate, but overall you can't really knock the screen on this thing. It's super bright and it looks great. And so as we move over to the Pixel Slate, the same thing I said in the versus video and in the review of this device is still true. It's a branded display, so a molecular display, whatever that exactly entails. It doesn't really matter. The thing looks incredible. The colors are punchy and vibrant, and it's not quite as bright as the HP X2 or the Pixelbook screen for that matter, but it's really close. And overall, the screen just has this look that's, it's hard to put into words. It just looks fantastic. And so overall, when we're looking at screens again, they're both 12.3 inches. The HP X2 is a 2400 by 1600, and the Slate is a 3000 by 2000 display. It's got more pixels. You can't tell on either one. So this is a really, really close one because neither one of them is bad. They're both great. But because there's more pixels and I think the colors look just a little bit better on the Slate, I've got to give the win to the Slate. All right, moving on to the keyboard portion. This is important because these two handle being detachables in two very different ways. So on the HP X2, you have more of a clamshell design where you can pop the top off. On the Pixel Slate, you've got more of kind of the origami case that folds into a stand type of situation. And those two things play out very differently when you're using them in the real world. On a desk, they're both fine because you have the desk kind of anchoring the entire experience and everything performs as you'd expect it to. Everything starts falling apart for most detachables when you set things in your lap and you don't have a perfectly flat surface. For the Pixel Slate, for me, I just do not like using it in my lap at all. I feel like I really have to work to make it function for me, and it just takes up too much space. It's too wobbly, and I just don't really care for the experience of using it in my lap. The X2, on the other hand, even though it's not perfect and it's a little top heavy, overall, using it in my lap feels pretty good. And so that would extend to, like, if you're on a picnic table or anything where there's not a perfectly flat surface, the X2 is going to be a better overall experience for you because it just has the sturdiness of the hinge and you're not reliant on some sort of folding mechanism to create the stand for you. So that was all the ways that, you know, the things stand up and hold themselves up when you're using them, but that really doesn't talk about how well the keyboard and trackpad actually function on them. I have to say, I like the keyboard trackpad combo on the X2 better than the one on the Slate. The keys just feel really great and clicky, and HP's just been doing a great job with keyboards of late, and the trackpad's really good. It's not glass, but the click mechanism is great. The size of it is really nice, and just in general, using it, especially on a desk, is fantastic. If I pull it down in my lap, sometimes it can bend and flex in ways that I don't really care for, because if you pick it up by the corner, the weight of the whole device can pull down and the trackpad can seep up just a little bit. That's not great, and it doesn't inspire you with a lot of confidence, but overall, using it in your lap is going to feel like a better experience than the Pixel Slate. The Pixel Slate, however, has these cool round keys. It is backlit, whereas the HP X2 is not. And the overall typing experience, again, on a desk feels really good. The trackpad is glass and feels great on a desk. You move it to your lap, because of all of that wiggle, it just is not a good experience to me. I don't like how constricted I feel trying to use it and fit it in my lap so it's not falling off because of the kickstand and all that kind of stuff. And then the trackpad can get accidental clicks if it's bent in the wrong way. And I just don't like using it in my lap. Your mileage may vary, but because of those things, because of the more function you get out of the hinge design on the X2, and overall, I think a better typing experience on the X2, even though it's not backlit, I think the win in this category has to go to the HP Chromebook X2. Now we have to move on to internals and ports and speakers and all that kind of stuff, and this is kind of back and forth as well with these two devices. Let's start off with the X2. So internally, you're getting a Core M3, so the 7th gen Core M3, 4 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of internal storage, no other options there. So while the Core M3 is plenty to power you through Chrome OS, and I haven't had any issues with it at all performance-wise, a lot of you are not gonna like having only a 4 gig option when it comes to RAM, and you're not gonna like having 32 gigs of internal storage, and I get that. But this one does come with an SD card expansion slot, so you can expand your storage with that. You also get the headphone microphone jack, which you don't get on the Pixel Slate, and you get front-firing speakers, even though they're not the best speakers in the world. So you get a lot of good stuff, maybe isn't the best. So when we come over to the Pixel Slate, you can outfit this thing all the way up to a Core i7 with 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of internal storage. So there's really no comparison there. If we come down on the Core M3 version of the Slate, I think we're in a more fair comparison, but it comes with double the storage, double the RAM. So 64 gigs of internal storage, 8 gigs of RAM. So even at the similar spec, we're seeing a lot more internal oomph here, and you're also getting 8th gen processor, so they're gonna get a little bit of a speed bump, not a ton. But when we go to ports, you're only getting 2 USB-C ports, and that is it. You're losing the headphone jack, you're losing an SD card slot, so that's kind of a knock to the Slate. But then on the flip side again, when we start talking about speakers, you guys know how I feel about the speakers on this thing. They're just unmatched, they're amazing. They sound great. If you like to consume content on your device, there's no substitute for great speakers, and the Pixel Slate has great speakers. So yeah, this one's just kind of back and forth, but when it comes down to it, if you're really after more RAM and more storage and better speakers, This entire category here has to go to the Pixel Slate. Now let's talk about user experience just a little bit, because as I said, the internals on the HP X2, if you can get past the 32 gigs of storage, honestly are enough to get you by. Like, I didn't have any issues running everything I normally do. I think Chrome OS handles RAM way better than it used to. And just in general, I wasn't bothered by any of the internals at all, save storage, because there are a few other people logged into this device and they have their stuff stored. So I started running into a little bit of a storage issue there. But actually using the device, actually popping this thing off and using it as a tablet, as I said earlier, the edges on it for me helped me grip the thing. It felt way more natural to hold as a tablet. It has the pen included in the box. It had the keyboard included in the box. So all this stuff just kind of comes together. It makes it feel lighter in the hand. I just enjoyed using this device. And even when you talk about some of the other modes that you would want to put it in, so like tent mode and presentation mode, all of those modes are easier to use with the way that, the HP X2 does things, because you just take it off, flip it around, clip it on, and put it in presentation mode. This one with presentation mode on the Pixel Slate feels weird. You create the stand and you flip the keyboard back, and sometimes it doesn't realize it did so. And again, the rounded edges look really nice and the smaller bezels look really nice, but when I'm trying to hold it, I just never can feel like I've got a hold of the device in general. And I don't know, even with the addition of the fingerprint scanner over here, which I really like just from a kind of user experience, I still have to lean towards the HP X2. I honestly just enjoy using it more. That's a whole bunch of stuff mixed together. I can just tell you at the end of the day, if I'm not thinking about specs, if I'm not thinking about all the other things that are different or better or worse and all that kind of stuff and categorizing everything, when I actually sit down and have to use this device, I feel more confidence picking this one up. I enjoy using the HP X2 more than I do the Pixel Slate. So let's wrap this thing up. If you've been keeping score, the Slate has 3, the X2 has 2. It should be cut and dry, right? My winner would be the Pixel Slate. But it's not quite that simple. And in this wrap up, I've got to throw a little bit of a wrench into everything, and that is price. Or value, maybe would be a better terminology to use here. Because right now, if I got the Core M3 version of this, which is closer, you know, in comparison to what we have on the table with the HP X2, it's $800. Granted, it comes with a little more RAM and a little bit more storage, but then you're going to pay another $200 for your keyboard and another $100 for your pen. So you're talking $1,100 before tax. The HP X2, its MSRP is $599, but it is routinely on sale for $450 to $500. I mean, just like all the time, constantly. For a long time there, it was like a month it was on sale for $500. So it won't be anything of a surprise to see this thing for $450 or even $400 as the months start wearing on. And so when you start talking about that big of a price gap, I mean, we're talking you could buy 2 of these. You can get one for yourself and one for somebody else for the same price you would pay here. You have to consider that whenever you're making a purchase. Because when I buy the HP Chromebook X2, I'm going to get my pen, I'm going to get my keyboard right out of the box for $450 to $600, somewhere in there. Over here, you're going to have to make all these different purchasing decisions. Maybe you're going to go with a bridge keyboard. Maybe you're going to try to go with your own keyboard and all this kind of stuff. It's just a nicer package to just go buy the whole thing. It just comes with everything in the box. And so when we talk about user experience, I know it was one of the 5 categories, but it's an important one because in general, using the Chromebook needs to be a great experience. And since this one, I feel like gives a better overall experience in general and is so much cheaper, it is impossible for me right now to tell you to go and buy the Pixel Slate over the HP X2. So regardless of whether it won more categories, in general, as you as a consumer, I've got to tell you, I think your better buy is going to be with the HP Chromebook X2. Now, the only caveat I will say to that is if you really demand great speakers and you're not going to use headphones, or you demand the highest end processors and you're not worried about money and you're going to go spend the money to go get an i5 or i7 with 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, well, sure, you can't get that over here. So if that is important to you, then you can look at this review and go, hey, it won 3 out of 5. I feel like I'm going to go spend my money on this, then by all means, go and do that. But if you're asking me, money is an option and money matters, which one of these am I going to buy with my money? Right now, at this point, I'm going with the HP Chromebook X2. Guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below. And until next time, we'll see you.